Live button.
I think we're live.
Yeah, we are officially live. The batter is baking and the kitchen is clean. Welcome to Hotcakes on the Call to Action podcast. I'm your host and the chef, Dylan Camacho. Today with me, I have two of my favorite people from a little bit of everywhere on the Action Army, starting with Danny Joy in the house.
Hi, you just saw me. Probably.
Probably just saw our
Awesome.
Yeah. Somebody who maybe didn't just see just now, we always love to see him. Right below me, we got the Belfort in the house.
That's me. You know it. You know who I am. It's me.
Mm-hmm. So Belfort's here because he's Christian Harloff's favorite fan, so it's the only way he'll ever watch this video. But
He might be in the chat. You never know. It could be in SEN live, chatting away.
That is true. That is very true. So if we see Sen in live, all the love in the world to the Sen and account and everything, make sure to give him all the love in the chat.
Mm-hmm.
Today's episode of Hotcakes, guys. Who is the Action Army? Who are these crazy terrorist groups that have gone over and taken this showdown by storm? Who keeps still donating money under the Call to Action podcast title? We have no idea. So
these are mysteries that may never be solved.
Yeah, mysteries that we'll never know, but we might. So
we wouldn't tell anyway. So
no, we wouldn't tell anyway. That's deep cuts.
Paul and I are doing an investigation currently to figure it out.
Yeah. There's deep blood money running through this podcast. That email to hit us and be like, you owe.
I'm trying to launder it current. What? Never mind.
What? Don't look at our tax returns, everybody. All right. Jokes aside. So on today's episode, who is the Action Army? So a big reason I wanted to have this episode is in recent affairs with our name coming through on Sen for the recent donations and talks, which go us, everybody. Hey, make sure to like and subscribe to this channel. But yeah, so recently it's been coming around that we hear the terms Action Army, Action Industries, Call to Action Podcast, Chill to Action. Between Sen and recently Frankie Numbers put out a video kind of giving his for your recommendation or for your whatever bullshit
consideration.
There we go. His kind of pick for the Schmodown Awards coming up in January. One thing that we noticed on there was that he put Chill to Action on there, which again, all the props to the world to Danny Joy for making that show fire. But it was a moment where all of the podcaster hosts on that were like, so that's a show on our network. That's not really, and we use the term segment, which we're getting away from, is like a part of a show. A show like this is an episode. This is me and Danny and Belfort talking about this stuff. That's what Hotcakes is for right now. All of that aside. So the point is, the terms have kind of become interchangeable for a little bit. If you want an analogy for it, it's like if I pulled out a Coke can right now and it was Pepsi, some people would still call it a Coke. And they'd still kind of be right. Some people would call it a soda. Some people would call it pop if you're really weird.
That's weird.
Some people would call it weird. Now, listen, all of these terms are interchangeable for the same thing, and I think that's kind of the problem. Everybody has kind of assumed that we, as the Call to Action podcast, are just an Action Army or the Action Industries or any of that stuff. And while that's kind of true, it's also not the best way to describe it. So, in short, we're going to go ahead and do a brief summary of everything for that. And for people who just want our visual learners, here is a rough draft of everything here. As you can see on this one, the Action Army, as detailed by the top part right here, is the overall fan base. Let's get into that really quick. Belfort, can you give us a quick history on how the term Action Army kind of came about?
Okay, so really quickly, there's some important things that happened that developed the Action Army. The first one was on April 29, 2015. The very first episode of Action Movie Anatomy. Ben Bateman, Andrew Ghai started the show reviewing action movies every week on Popcorn Talk. That grew a fan base that they began calling I don't think they started calling it Action Army until they got in the Schmodown, really, but that's the seed for the Action Army. Then they had a Facebook fan group from Schmodown and from Action Movie Anatomy, two of them actually, that one was actually called the Action Army, the other one was fans of Drew and Ben. And then they started a Patreon, and that's when it really kind of like structured the army, because the tiers of the Patreon are ranks a la an army, even though Ben and Drew like had the most out of whack ranks. Like the ranks were not in like the right order. I think they finally are now. But that was the start of the Action Army in its earliest forms was fans of AMA, fans of the Schmodown. The biggest thing that kind of kickstarted the Action Army into what it is now was Schmodown live events, because a group of people who were fans of Ben and Drew and Team Action started going to Schmodown live events and hanging out together and, talking to each other on the internet, on Facebook Messenger groups. I'm in like 47 of them now. And that's kind of like where the modern army started. And that's where the Action Army is today.
Right. So as an encompassing point, we've kind of become, I will safely say that we as the Action Army, as this fan base, is definitely the most diehard Schmodown fan base that there are. I mean, listen, any other people coming in here that's going to argue it, go talk to Harloff. He'll be the first person to tell you. Belfort is a person that is literally at every live show ever.
Whoa. Well, almost.
Ever. So Belford's almost there a lot of the time. I'm at like 1 or 2 from time to time, guys. I don't make that Belfort money, so I don't go all the same places. Danny makes it whenever it's available to her. But the point is, it's not always just us about the podcast. We as the Action Army, we know we come out in droves. We are the loudest. We are often the most obnoxious, but we are there, and we are that passionate fan base, which I think is why another reason that we start to get more notice, as kind of Belfort has mentioned. Throughout these live events, they see the same faces over and over again. Belfort became a meme in Houston, and evolved into this whole point. So kind of breaking it down into that. So let me pull up this wonderful graphic really quick. High definition graphics. We have Action Industries. What are we joining in on? Chris, we're describing what in the hell the Action Army is, because it's confusing now. I think for casual watchers, it's all blended together to make us as a podcast and Action Industries as a business and the fan base, it's all a blur and it all kind of blends together. Sorry, exactly right. Same people in the podcast. There's a lot of crossover, and we'll get to that part a little bit later on the show. But again, so let's talk a little bit about Industries. Another thing that
before we get into Industries real quick, another thing that's really important for the Action Army that kind of changed what the Army was. The Army started out supporting Ben and Drew and Team Action.
Yep.
That was like the purpose of the Army. And if you were in the Army, you supported Team Action. Well, Team Action broke up. So a lot of people thought the Army was going to break up, like that there wouldn't be an Army anymore. Mm-hmm. But it didn't. The Army kind of like circled the wagons around itself and like supported itself.
Right.
And you at that point, it wasn't Team Action was no more. So you didn't have to be a fan of Team Action to be in the Army.
Nope.
You could be a fan of corruption and be in the Army. You could be a horseman fan and be in the Army. Not my Army, but the Army. Yeah. And so that's where it's kind of like blown up, I could say. Like you could be a fan of anything in the Schmodown. As long as you're a fan of the Schmodown, the Action Army takes all kinds. We don't care if you're a fan of whatever in the Schmodown, as long as you're a fan of the Schmodown. Right. We don't care how you support the Schmodown, as long as you support the Schmodown.
That's right.
Yep.
We're big fans of everyone in the entire community. We've been open to everyone in the entire community. I do believe that because Team Action was, a heel team, a lot of people kind of looked at the Action Army in a negative sort of light. And there's always been this weird sort of dialogue on the Facebook between fans and other fans, factions and other factions. So it was really easy for a lot of us to kind of get into the Team Action mode and be in that sort of way. But bottom line, we have always been inclusive to everyone inside of the Schmodown, and we want to continue to be that for everyone inside of the Schmodown, because, like Belfort said, Action Army has grown into so much more than what it started out as. Mm-hmm. So to watch this growth from beginning to where it is now has been such a fucking mind freak. It's insane. So Action Army for us right now does not necessarily mean just fans of Team Action. It means the community. It means these fans that are hardcore, who go out there and who support and who are stinking loud and who don't care, because we love this community and we will always want to be a part of this community. And that's what Action Army is at the end of the day.
Right. So it's obviously, to the point, Garth makes an excellent point in the chat, and he says, I'm an Action Army, I'm a Dungeon Head, and I root for the Odd Couple too. Exactly to that point. Dungeon Heads across the board, heel fans across the board, Fight Club fans across the board. Like, listen, it doesn't matter who you support. If you're a diehard,
you can support only stupid answers.
Yep.
And then you can be in the Action Army.
Yeah.
We got space for you.
Totally fine. Yeah. So Action Army as an encompassing term, just think of it this way. Just think of it as a fan base, as the diehard fan base, the people who are going out there in droves, not even just to live events, just always supporting, always showing up in the patrons, all that stuff. So that's kind of the brief breakdown of the Army, quote unquote. It's a grown subject. Chris has a name drop quite literally. Exactly, Chris. Like
we've gotten a lot of shout outs this past week on SEN. Right. We're extremely pumped about that.
Yeah, which has been super sweet. And I can't even say it's all just us as a podcast. It is us as a fan base. Like we as a cumulative crew are killing it and good for us. But I don't want to sit too long on the fan base concept. If you're tuning in, Action Army is the fan base. That's the simplest way to describe it as that. Belfort, go into describing the difference between the fan base and Action Industries.
Okay, so the fan base, obviously, as we said, was the Army. Mm-hmm. Action Industries is the brand that Ben and Drew started. It's, before they were on Action Movie Anatomy for Popcorn Talk. Then they started the Action Guys, which is on Collider. And they decided that, they didn't want to be one of those people who just kind of shows up on shows and they don't really get a way to capitalize off of being on all these shows. So what they did was they formed their own brand, and it's Action Industries, and it covers everything that they do. I mean, it's everything related to Ben and Drew. It's everything that they like to do. They like to host things. Drew obviously acts. Ben is into Magic the Gathering. Drew is into
CRL.
He casts for CRL. Mm-hmm. So it covers all of that. They did a red carpet for Angel Has Fallen, and they got to interview at least talk to Jerry B, Gerard Butler. So it's kind of like taking it to the next level. And what they did was they put the word out to people who were on their patrons that they were starting this and that they were looking for help. And so, they thought they might get 2 or 3 people, but all these people came forward and said, "Hey, we want to help out. We will." I was one of them. I just literally sent them a message and said, "I don't know what I can do, but I'll do whatever if you need something, if I can do it, I'll do it." I became their Facebook manager. There's a lot. Most of the people you see that get talked about on SEN Live or wherever, they work for Ben and Drew. Paul Denuzzo runs the Patreon. I run the Facebook. Richard Eric Jarvie, who's on Call to Action when we're on Estonia time. He's like the head of the Instagram. He's also shirtless calls all the time with Ben and Drew. So there's all these different people. Emma McAllister does designs things for them. Jacob Patrick does all their logos and stuff. So there's all these different people who do all this different stuff for Action Industries, and they work for Ben and Drew. They work with Ben and Drew. That's what Ben and Drew always like to say. We don't work for them, we work with them.
Right.
And so if you see something on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, Matt Kearns runs the Twitter.
Currency.
So we do all of their social media stuff. We do all of their scheduling because Ben and Drew are terrible at scheduling things and telling people what's going to happen and you don't even know. It's it's
such a fun ride.
Oh, that's for sure. You never know what you're going to get. And then obviously because they're very busy, Right. Ben is involved in the Schmodown now. He's I don't know if everybody knows this. He's talked about it on different streams and different stuff like that. He runs their business development, I think, or business expansion for the Schmodown, and he works with Christian hand in hand. And so, he's super busy with that. He's also the vice president of a toy company. He hosts different shows on AfterBuzz. Drew's going to China and for CRL and all these different things. So they're all over the place. So it's you never know where they're going to be, what they're going to be able to do, but they want to interact with their fans, and that's the other thing that Action Industries is all about. It allows them to interact with their fans more. And that's kind of linking it to the Army and the way that Action Industries has kind of helped the Army to grow as the Army has helped Action Industries to grow. Ben and Drew used to put out in-character videos. Remember back in the day where they would talk shit on other teams? like especially during that Ultimate Schmodown run where they would talk shit on Trek and Top 10, and they were great, and like people loved them. And then, you know, about a year ago, they started doing like behind the scenes videos for their Patreon, where they would like break down what happened in the match, and those were huge. That helped to grow their Patreon, which in turn helped. That's when they kind of launched Action Industries, was they realized we have enough people on this Patreon to kind of like grow a brand, and that's where the brand came from. It was directly from their Patreon, directly from the Army.
Right. So as you can tell, there is some crossover between the fan base and Industries, because if you're just tuning in, and Belfort eloquently described it, Industries is built up from people who are fans. There are people who came that worked with Ben and Drew and make that platform and make that brand into something that's the amazing thing that it is today. So whenever we start talking about the Action Army and then we start talking about Action Industries, yeah, they're kind of interchangeable in that there's a lot of similar members, and that's going to be true for the whole thing across the board. All of these are made up of the Action Army. So listen, we are all Action Army at heart. Industries is not necessarily all call to action, but we have hosts on here that are from Industries, obviously, as Belfort and Paul and a couple other people. Belfort really, whenever he just chooses to decide that he's a host or not.
I'm a host.
Yeah, tonight he's a host. So, or if he's on a show, then he's a host. If he's not on a show, he doesn't care about the podcast. But so kind of bringing that into us as the Call to Action podcast as a whole. So I'll chime in on here because I'm far from the expert. Danny's been on here way longer as a founding member than I have, so to speak, in that way. So looking at the podcast as a whole, so obviously we have the Action Army, all of the fan base. Then we have Action Industries, which is Ben and Drew's brand. Now we have the Call to Action podcast, and you might think that we are like kind of contracted or just whatever. We're fans. We're fans. We're Action Army fans. That's always been our calling. So at the end, when we've always plugged Ben and Drew in our videos, unless we've forgotten, because our egos are getting too big now, we plug our own stuff. Sorry, Ben. But so now it's the point where we as fans on the podcast, we are very much our own separate thing. So sure, I don't work with or for Ben and Drew. They're great. Big fans. We as a podcast as ourselves, though, this is a channel. This channel right here, Hotcakes, this thing you're watching right now, that's a show on this channel run by me, Chef Dylan, where I give you hotcakes and hot takes. So Danny's show, you might know it, Chill to Action, right over there.
It's a little show that we do every Sunday, Monday. It's not a big deal.
Small little indie show that we do on Sundays and Mondays occasionally as needed. She hosts the show here on the podcast. With Paul Denuzio, who's in the chat, but not here in the video because I didn't want to have too many people in there. And this is kind of where we're getting to this breakdown. So, Frankie, this is for you, buddy, just to kind of get that clarification. If you're wondering what the difference between the podcast and the show is, dang it, let me get this right. All right. This is a podcast right here. What you're clicked on, this is a channel. This is a channel for shows. This Chill to Action or Hotcakes or whatever show it is a show on the Call to Action podcast channel. All of the hosts are made up of 9, 10, 15. The number varies on how many of us there actually are at any given moment in the podcast. Dylan. Yeah. But the point of it is that, so yes, I, Dylan Camacho, am not an Action Industries member. I'm a Patreon of Action Industries. I'm a Patreon of a lot of things, Action and everything like that. Belfort, part of Action Industries, part of the show, but this isn't Action Industries. Danny, I don't know if you're sub to all that stuff or whatever your background is, but kind of give your quick, obviously do your plug for Chill to Action because it's great. Make sure to check it out on Sundays and occasionally Mondays. But kind of show that difference on saying, all right, so kind of describe the show layout of the difference between the podcast and the show.
Right. So the first, before I kind of deep dive into that just a little bit, being with Call to Action since day one has been amazing to see the growth in this channel where we started off as just a podcast. We were literally just doing audio only. There was only audio. There was maybe 7 of us, something like that started. I think it might have even been less than that. And it's been really amazing to see the growth and the changes throughout the podcast and to see where this channel has gone because Frank's post on Facebook has brought me nothing but stress because we've been Frank literally started a civil war inside of our channel. So because of that, we've decided to kind of figure out our growth and figure out where we kind of want to take things and what we want to call things. So deciding to call it a channel over a podcast has been a really good development for all of us in general. With that, we have decided to call each of our sections shows. Like Chill to Action is a show on the Call to Action channel. Hotcakes is a show on the Call to Action channel. Ladies Night is a show this Monday. Make sure you check it out. Kelsey's Ladies Night, Alex's Schmobates, Dylan's Hotcakes, mine and Paul's Chill. We have all of that stuff. Billy's gonna come up with his own shit soon.
It's coming.
Cannot wait for y'all to see all of that. So
this ain't bullshit. It's coming.
This ain't bullshit, y'all. So it's really interesting to see the development inside of this channel, to see the show and to see this growth, because it's been really fun for the Schmodown in general, because the Schmodown has really changed and it's really grown. The community has gotten so much bigger and more involved. Fan podcasts and fan reactors and different things like that have really stepped their game up. It's not just us in this community. There are amazing channels, shows in this whole community. The Cinefanatics, Abby, Albert, D2A. Wait, is that the right name?
Hmm?
That's the right name, right? Whatever. Anyways, plenty of amazing shows that are a part of this community. So Chill to Action was kind of something that I thought of after watching One-on-One with Christian Harloff. So watching all of that stuff really kind of inspired this thing. My whole thing with Chill is we do not do kayfabe on the show. We want to completely nix that out. We don't talk about kayfabe. We do not have competitors on as their characters. We have them on as the people, because we want to be able, as fans, to talk to these pros as people and to be able to have that love between the community and the pros, because we've all feel so close and connected to these people. We have all seen where the Facebook has gone really toxic and has gone really crazy. So we want to be able to have this outlet for fans and pros to be able to see each other and to just be with each other and all of that. And that's where the whole chill idea came from. We're just chilling. We're just hanging out, talking. It's
just
fun. So thank all of you for watching, because I love it.
Right.
I
So
will watch it when I'm on, guys. Just when I'm on. Don't worry about it.
only
When Belfort's on, please.
That's
Harloff,
basically it.
if you tuned in, this is for you, buddy. One last time. Here's the quick graph that says, hey, here's the Action Army. Army is a term for the fan base. Industries is a term for Ben and Drew's brand, which is supported by fans. Call to Action Podcast, which is run by us. You're looking at me, Danny, Belfort, all various hosts on the show, whenever Belfort chooses to want to actually be on that show.
Pretty much.
A show on the Call to Action Network. Action Army gives them a Yes, absolutely right. We will give you trial by just throwing eggs at you, and if you say, I love eggs, we're like, you're good people. Come on in. Don't worry, Robert. I have some pancakes ready for you waiting at the end. I'll do a share screen here in a second for as we sign out. Don't do it yet, Danny. But so that's the cakes, guys. Listen, all right, I see a lot of comments. Let me get this first and foremost. I am indeed a chef, and I can cook a pancake. And if you guys keep tuning in, I might do a special episode where I just cook a fucking pancake on the thing to prove a point right here in the middle of the stream.
Yes, I'm down for that.
Yeah, I don't think that was a real chef name. It's a fraud.
That name tag is a fraud. Also, to Jake Yakavetta, I am eloquent all the time. Thank you very much.
Right.
Also, check out FPP with Tony Heald. I think he's on FPP.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many shows to check out, guys. That's the beauty of it's kind of like when Collider Live and SEN Live like split apart. There's so many channels, there's so many shows, there's so many reactors, and we're all a community, and that's the beauty of this thing. And you know, whether you think you're Army or not, if you love the Schmodown, you're part of the Army. Like, you know, and that's the beauty of the Army. You might not want to be a part of the Army, you might not even think you're part of the Army, but if you like the Schmodown, you're part of the Army. Like if you go to live shows, we're gonna see you there. We're gonna hang out with you. Like and honestly, like if you want to have a good time at a live show, ask anybody. come find the Army. Come find, the people that go to the shows all the time because they have the best time and they'll include you in the best time.
Right.
I'm not I'm kind of an asshole. But
done.
I'm an asshole to everybody. So there you go.
Yeah.
Doman clearly wants pancakes now.
I'm doing my job right. Every time I host this show, everybody's like, "Where's the damn pancakes now?" Yeah, absolutely. And just kind of as we inch closer to spectacular, guys, a lot of us are going to be as the Call to Action podcast, and a lot of us as the Action Army are going to be at that event. Make sure come out and say hi, guys. We are all fans. We all love talking with you. Don't feel like that we're any more special because I got a webcam and I said, "Hey, I'm going to talk about Schmodown once a week or multiple times a week." Come out and say hi. We all love y'all, fans, friends. We're all fans of Schmodown at the end of the day. Action Army for life. Let's do some plugs, and then I got some cakes for y'all. Belfort, start with the plugs, my friend.
Yeah, so I'm at Mr. Billy Belfort on Twitter. I'm also Billy Belfort on Facebook I'm William Belfort, I think, on Facebook. In the MTS group, and then the SEN group, and all the other groups, and then the Action Army group, and also I run the Action Industries Facebook page. So if you see something from Action Industries, it's probably me on there, unless Paul's just forgot to switch off that he's not Action Industries Facebook but yeah, that's where I'm at. Usually on Twitter. Hit me up on Twitter.
Danny, where can they catch you at?
You know me, y'all. You can find me on Twitter at Danny Joy. I fixed it. Look, there's 2 E's now. That's my Twitter handle, at Danny Joy. Find me there. Find me here on this channel. Chill to Action, Jen Sturger. We got Ladies Night with Alice and Laura from Forced Toast. Laura, the current #1 contender in the Star Wars match, is going to be on Ladies Night. We cannot wait for that. Please come and check that out. Ladies Night with Kelsey and Alex and all of that stuff. You can find me on Facebook, all of that. Follow me on Twitter. Follow Watch the Book also.
And I am Dylan Camacho, chef of the show. Real quick, at Albert, what kind of topping would I put on my pancake? I've been really wanting to feel like chocolate chip pancakes. Maybe just a little bit of whipped cream, not a whole lot, because that's how you get diabetes, and just slap the syrup on it, man. I'm a simple man.
You skinny bastards need to stop talking about food, all right?
You can catch me here at Hotcakes. I am your chef at all times on this show. I come in here, I have the hotcakes with the hot takes. The hot take today was, what the hell is the Action Army? If you missed the show, don't worry. This video is going right on to the Call to Action podcast right here. You're already here. Make sure to like and subscribe to the video, the channel. Hit that little ding bell. I don't know what it does, but go ahead and do it.
Gives us notifications when we go live. So
we'll let you know as soon as we go live, because we're so great at posting when we're going to go live an hour before we do. So make sure that you hit that bell so you know for sure when we're actually doing it.
The Willie bells. Hit it.
You can always catch me here at the Call to Action podcast. You can catch me on Twitter at CAMACH Octopus. I am currently not a private account for right now. Use that while you can, because I will go private again. I don't trust any of you.
Wait. Before we Prince who wasn't promised. You said Trace Leche's pancakes.
I was just about to put that up.
What are those, and where can I get them?
In Texas, probably.
What gringo shit is this? No Mexicano would make Trace Leche's pancakes, but I want them in my life.
Danny, cue to the hotcakes. Cue to the hotcakes. That's our show, everybody. Share that screen, Danny. Share that screen. Oh yeah, hold on. I got it. There we go.
Oh my God. How dare you?
That's our show, everybody. We're tuning out with this. We're not clicking off the live button yet. Just make sure to tune in. There's some spicy hotcakes. Always tune in. Thank you. Have a good night.
Salute.